lights down. Hand over my crown, hand over my heart. I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of MGR Unplugged. Rainy day in Phoenix today. Amazing.
Rare rainy day.
Very rare. I think it's the first time we had rain since summer.
Yes.
Huh?
No, probably monsoon season.
Yeah, like August,
Yeah,
September.
August, yeah.
I don't know, it's been a while. I mean, this morning I woke up and started working out and it was pouring rain. I was really tempted to not working out, but I did it. I feel very good now.
That's good.
But no, it was really raining hard. So it's still raining now, but it's unusual as rain in Phoenix is an actual event. The news is flooded with, no pun intended, with rain stories. All right, well, but today's topic actually is nothing related to the rain. It's actually primarily Facebook, who apparently is in trouble again for, it's being sued actually by the FTC. So this is a little more serious. The Federal Trade Commission for antitrust and monopoly again. Especially related to the acquisitions of Instagram first and WhatsApp later. So we've been talking about this thing for a long time and nothing's really happened. And we have our different opinions, actually, similar opinions on what we think should happen. But what I understand is why does this thing keep happening over and over again? I mean, they testified before Congress and they were grilled, not just Facebook, but also Google's and Amazon and all that, and Apple. And then now they're specifically suing the FTC is in a few states are actually suing Facebook and trying to get to divest, basically to split up the three entities because they say they have too much power.
Yeah, okay. But so what?
Well, I mean, no, it's a valid point. I mean, you start seeing how they control. I mean, social media is becoming more than the traditional media as far as influencer of everything, especially now that we have a lot of things that are political unrest and elections and social unrest with Black Lives Matter and everything else. So the way the news spreads the most is via social media now. And when you have companies like Facebook, obviously Google with YouTube is another one, but that for now is not the issue. But when Facebook can control the message so much, with all their different platforms and their policy they used to have as far as, trying to acquire whichever platform seemed to be a little threat for them. I understand why the FTC may say, hey, you know what, we may have approved that acquisition a few years back, but now it's just too big, which also brings up Facebook's defense saying, hey, it's big now because we made it big. It's our credit. You cannot just say that we're successful and now you break us apart, so.
Yeah, I mean, okay. The Instagram one, listen, they bought Instagram 8 years ago. It's not like this is some recent acquisition. They bought them in 2012. And when they bought them, everybody said it was stupid. If you recall, people were like, what? They paid $1 billion for Instagram?
$1 billion, yeah.
That's crazy. They're stupid. What are they thinking? All these things. And then the WhatsApp even more. Remember when they bought WhatsApp for $19 billion? Mm-hmm. People were like going nuts saying that's insane. And now they're saying, oh, no, you're too powerful. You're too, like, that was anti-competitive. Maybe it's anti-competitive in hindsight, but at the time, it was not anti-competitive. It's only anti-competitive now because Facebook's a bunch of killers, okay? Facebook, Zucks, you can talk a lot of shit about Zucks. You can't say the guy isn't a killer and that he doesn't know what he's doing. I think, listen, I think the argument that it's anti-competitive is kind of not that strong, actually. Because look at Instagram, for example. Instagram's been trying to do video for years and failing over and over and over.
Well, I wouldn't say they're failing. I mean, they're trying to. The stories are the reels. I don't understand.
But Instagram launched IGTV. Nobody cares. Totally failed. They launched Reels. Totally failed. Nobody cares. But TikTok comes along and beats their ass at video. So obviously, Instagram and Facebook aren't that anti-competitive. If a new competitor can come out and beat them.
But you think about it, the stories were actually a copy of Snapchat.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the issue that Facebook sees something that is successful in another
Everybody
platform.
does that.
Yeah. Obviously.
LinkedIn has stories now. Twitter has stories now.
Even YouTube, I think, has stories too.
Yeah, YouTube has stories. That's the name of the game. Features are not a differentiator when it comes to consumer social because they'll just be copied like that. But I don't think that Facebook and Instagram actually have as much of a monopoly as people think. I think that they are becoming more and more beatable by the day, and then we will see new competitors come and beat them, quite frankly. I don't think you really need regulation. Now, the flip side of that is, I've said for a while, and I still believe this, I think Facebook wants to be regulated. I do think so. Because if you're Zuckerberg, put yourself in Zuckerberg's shoes, okay? You build this beautiful social network. You become a multi-billionaire. You're richer than God, okay? You live a great life. And now you have this thing that is so big and powerful, more than you could have ever imagined. And you really get hated no matter what you do. So if you do the pro-censorship thing and start censoring supposed misinformation, fake news, whatever, like a lot of people want you to do, okay, well, then you're censoring people. And so then you're going to get criticized, oh, you're a censorship company. And then you say, okay, fine, you know what? We're not going to. Because then at one point, Zuck said, you know what? We're not going to do anything. We're just going to let things happen, and we're going to have freedom of information on our platform, and we'll let people deal with it. And then some people say, okay, good, now free speech. But then they say, oh, but you let all this fake news and disinformation and hateful stuff happen. And there's no winning, basically. No matter what strategy, if you say anything goes, people are going to say, well, you're letting disinformation spread. If you start censoring, well, then now you're too powerful.
That's a good point. Let me just jump in first.
So to finish my point, though, this is why Zuckerberg doesn't care. I think Zuckerberg wants to be a utility. He does care, but I think if I'm Zuckerberg, I'm like, you know what? Make us a utility, because once you're a utility, then you're protected by the government. And basically, look at PP&G in California. They could not be less competent, and yet they're still worth billions of dollars because they're protected by a government monopoly. And I think Facebook wants to do the same thing. It's actually a pretty good deal being regulated as a utility. Because then you have no need for being competent anymore. You don't have to compete anymore.
Well, I see two things. One is the reputation that Facebook has, for a good reason, of crushing the competition. That's the way they started. They basically started just, as we know, acquiring any business or any competitive platform that they could acquire, and then either developing it to their own liking and their own integration, or basically crushing it and just disappearing it or making it disappear. So the anti-competitiveness part of this is one thing, saying, okay, well, Facebook is acquiring every platform that starts kind of sticking their head up, and being successful. They're going to try to acquire, like they did with Instagram, WhatsApp, and many others. So that's one thing. But I think the other part that is not clear in this lawsuit, they're just saying that they basically want to separate the two entities because they have too much power, or it's anti-competitive. But the other part is controlling the media and the message so much, because Facebook on its own, forget about WhatsApp or Instagram, Facebook on its own has these problems that they cannot regulate their own platform. And it's the same thing like happens with Twitter and all these major social media platforms. So that's another part that I'm not sure how is interwoven or connected with all this, because every time we have a major event, whether it's elections, social unrest, any major situation, the social media platforms are the ones that bring all this news / fake news / controversy, robots, and all these arguments and disputes and all the stuff that happen on social media. Some of them are, and they can't even control it. And then they find themselves trying to censor things and being the arbiters of truth. That is, I don't think is the role. But they're also blamed for doing that. Like you said, Facebook said
there's no winning.
Right.
If you
no winning. Yeah, exactly.
If Zuckerberg says, you know what, anything goes. We're not going to censor anything. We don't want to be in charge of basically deciding what is true or not true, we're just going to let anything go, then they're going to get a ton of shit for basically letting fake news and disinformation and anything happen. But on the flip coin, if they do censor and they do say, all right, we're going to try to police this, they are going to get things wrong. It's impossible to be 100% right. And they're going to get heavily criticized for being censors and too powerful. There's no winning.
I know.
This is why if you're Facebook, you say, you know what? I want to take the accountability of being the arbiter of truth and take it out of my hands because there's no winning. I'm just going to give it to the government and I still make all my money. I just want to sell ads. That's all Facebook wants to do. They just want to sell ads.
Absolutely.
They don't care about being the arbiters of truth, having all this control. That's like the hard part about running their platform. The fun part is making all the money. They just want the money. They don't want all this shit. And so if they can delegate that to the government, they'll be happy to.
But don't you think that also there's a portion of that makes them make more money because more people get engaged because they see this news that they feed off of themselves, whether it's fake or whatever, and they provoke these kind of interaction arguments.
Yes and
all
no.
that, and then people are more the spend because the goal of Facebook, as it is for YouTube and all these social media platforms, is that you spend more time on your screen on Facebook, and the algorithm is created so that even if you are super disciplined, you go to Facebook for one quick touch and go that I call, just look at something or post something and go. And before you know, you spend 15 minutes scrolling and seeing this, and even it's like, oh, this guy did this or this guy did that.
But this is why
that's because it's made to do that.
But this is why I think that Facebook and Instagram and everything they own is super beatable, because while Facebook and Instagram are like cigarettes. Are they addictive and do they feel good in the moment? Yes. But guess what? After the fact, and when you kind of reflect, you're like, you know what? I shouldn't be consuming myself with them. And this is why I think they're beatable, because I think there will be...
So you have a label that says this is a...
No, but I see so many new startups in consumer social right now that are doing so many cool things that most people have not heard of, because obviously they're tiny right now. All it takes is one or two of these to actually explode, and they will beat them.
So, all right,
because they'll be so much better. Because there's new platforms being designed with the goal of actually being mentally healthy while having a lot of the benefit of Facebook and Instagram and all these platforms is that you have these open, free platforms for communication and information, all these things. The negative side is that they can be hyper addictive and that they can cause negative downward spirals and all of this. And there are many people trying to build platforms that take the negatives out. And I think if someone does it, that they can win. And that's why I think that they're beatable.
But why then Facebook in this example or any other platform then start censoring and banning and deleting accounts of people that are maybe a little more contrarian to mainstream news? And we know a lot of people that have been banned just because they have political views that are opposite to the mainstream or whatever. So they are actually acting as a censorship platform where they decide what is trending or not. They decide what can be published or not. So they all do it. It's not just Facebook. I mean, YouTube this morning actually said that they're going to start banning or basically removing all videos that dispute Biden's win during the presidential election. When they said before, and this is like a month after the election, and before they said, hey, we are allowing all these videos that say that Trump actually won, that there's fraud in the election, all that stuff, because they say that it's another opinion and there's like a dispute, all that stuff. And to be honest, I mean, it's still being disputed. I mean, there's lawsuits in place. But YouTube just decided, okay, enough of that. We're not going to allow any more videos that are basically disputing that Biden won the election. Okay, I mean, fine, yeah, he won the election, whatever. But why is YouTube deciding now, if I wanted to listen or watch a video on the opposite view, and I'm a smart guy, I can make my own decision. I don't need a video to convince me, but I like to see both sides of the story. Why some people think that Biden did not win the election? Okay, let me see what they say. And then if they say something that's completely out of whack, I'm going to say, fuck, these guys are crazy. I mean, they're saying that the machines were tricked, or the things, that the ballots were fake, whatever. Okay, yeah, I get your point. And then the other guys say, okay, you won. But why is YouTube making that decision? Why is it making it now before they said, yeah, we can allow both points of views, and now we don't? So obviously, these platforms are deciding what people can see or not see. Like they are minimizing how people can make a choice themselves and decide, well, I can watch it. I can watch the video and then decide that's full of shit. So the same thing Facebook is doing, or Twitter for that matter, when they ban accounts that we know, whether it's, we can name a bunch of names of accounts that have been banned for one reason or another, but it's like, okay, if I have a radical different opinion, I can still use a social media platform to express it.
This is why I think we're going to go into a new era of a fragmented internet. I think that you're going to have many different platforms now going into the future. And like, there's kind of this is like a classic, like a business school thing of the bundling and unbundling effect, that you have this era that every business in industry goes through a bundling and then unbundling, bundling, unbundling. And kind of similar there's a very similar cycle of centralization and then decentralization that happens in a lot of different areas of life. And I think that right now, the last decade has been because obviously the internet started very fragmented. You had a million different places, all these competitors kind of popping up. And then you had the centralization where you had the major winners, the YouTubes, the Googles, which obviously then merged even further. And now we only have one search engine, basically Google. The rest are so small, it doesn't really matter. Then you have Facebook, Instagram, and then maybe Twitter. Like, you have very few platforms, really. There's not that many platforms. I think that we're going to see an explosion, a decentralization, so to speak, where you have a ton of different platforms. And a lot of these platforms may very simply just be based on your beliefs. So there's going to be a right-wing Twitter and a left-wing Twitter and a central Twitter and all types of different platforms. I think that's where we're headed.
Well, we had that on TV.
Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily good or bad. I think that there's good and bad to it. The good is that, well, if you have a bunch of different platforms, then any idea can be represented on any side, any belief, so that there is less censorship. But the negative is that then people are just going to be in their echo chambers. If you're on right-wing Twitter, then you're only going to see right-wing stuff. If you're a left-wing Twitter, you're only going to see left-wing. And I don't mean Twitter literally. I mean like equivalents.
But that's almost like Facebook groups, when they have different groups and you join a group and you can discuss anything you want. But also Facebook doesn't allow groups for certain topics. So like TV and basically as one of the most traditional media or even newspapers, they already align themselves with a certain political view or social view or whatever. So when you buy a newspaper, the newspaper is mostly left-wing newspaper, and you buy it because you read what you want to read and you hear what you want to hear and all that stuff, and then you buy a different newspaper, is different. You watch CNN is this type of news, or Fox is this type of news, and then you kind of already know what you get because they are already kind of mature as media outlets and they already have defined their audience and their political alliance and all that. But social media became more, when you go to the origins, it's just getting people in contact with each other, together, families, friends, all that stuff, which is a good idea. But then now it's so powerful. And now when they start making decisions themselves based on who makes those decisions and saying, okay, well, we need to ban this tweet or put a warning here or go on Facebook and ban completely this person's account because it's very controversial, too much conspiracy. They're actually having so much... They spend so much more time now trying to police, all the content that becomes like, it's open for people. Let people understand what is good news versus bad news. We have fake news. There's bloggers out there and blogs everywhere that have. You go to Huffington Post, just to name one, or any of these major blog platforms that everybody can publish wherever they want. There's no censorship there.
Listen, the most beautiful thing about the internet is that everybody has a voice.
Exactly.
The most horrible thing about the internet is that everybody has a voice.
Exactly.
You can't. I actually think most of the problems that all these platforms that people blame Facebook or Twitter or whatever for is not problems with the platform. It's just people. It's people are incredibly manipulatable and susceptible to all types of fake news and narratives and propaganda, whatever you want to call it. Everybody, even if you like to believe that you're above that, even if I like to always think that I am very I try my best to always see things as they are, not as the narrative I hope that it is, so to speak, and try not to fall into confirmation bias, all these things. Even when you're super aware of that, listen, I'm still susceptible. I still fall into things where it's like, oh wait, why do I think this? Is this because I've been kind of indoctrinated with this, or is this because I actually believe it? And if you aren't even self-reflective, then it's very easy to fall into these things. But the point is, people are easily manipulatable. People love negativity, whether that's good or not. People love negativity.
Negativity actually
we fall into
instills
addiction
conversation.
easily.
If everybody's kumbaya, we agree with everything. There's no
Yeah,
instigation.
but there's also like you said, it's like the classic like local news, right? It's like they try to always put the negative, horrible stories because that's what people want to watch. And I think most of the problems just come down to human nature. Humans are highly addictive creatures. We get addicted to things very easily. We're very gullible. We'll believe things even if they're not true. We'll believe things even if we know probably
Our
that they're not
psychology makes
true.
us react to bad news. That's the way we were brought up. Basically.
You know, there's like the harsh reality of like when you have hundreds of millions or billions of people on the internet, there's going to be a lot of, even if it's a small percentage of people, there's going to be a lot of bad actors. That's just the way it is.
Well, exactly.
If you have a billion people on the internet and 1% of people are highly manipulative, evil people, that's 10 million people that are trying to be highly manipulative. And you also just have, you know, there's people who are more intelligent and less intelligent in this world, unfortunately. And there's a lot of dumb people on the internet too. And so
I remember
the internet is really just a reflection. The internet is a mirror of humanity. And I think we've stared into that mirror and we're seeing a lot of the ugly sides.
Yes, but also it's a mirror in some sense, but also it makes other people that are one way in their public life become a different way in their
Yes, that's a
internet
problem
life.
too.
That's the problem because you see people that are all bullying and aggressive and everything on Twitter, some platforms hidden.
Twitter fingers, as they say.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Hidden behind the anonymity of the Twitter or something that will never be the same way. You're in person or in a gathering, expressing your opinion the same way.
Right.
It's the same thing that happens in back in the days when forums was the only way that people can communicate. There was a forum moderator that will say, "Hey, these are our rules. You can establish your opinion, respect people's opinions, blah blah, and if not, they will delete your opinion." There was the rules were there, and then you want to engage in a conversation. You don't have to agree with everything. Just establish or present your opinion in a educated way and respectful way, so that people can understand that you are you oppose their opinion, but do it respectfully. And that was the rule. Now, social media became like a extended version of forums where everybody can do everything.
And
everybody comments on each other.
I think there's a huge problem with trolling and irony and things like this, where it's really easy to be cynical online. It's really easy to knock something down and not provide any type of actual solutions. And this is why I think when I say we're going to go into a fragmented internet, I think that that we are. I think that, and I think one solution, very frankly, because what's one of the biggest problems that we have? We have lots of people who don't take things seriously because there's no consequences, and we have lots of bots and things like this, right? What's a very simple solution to that? Make a paywall. If it costs $10 a month to be a part of a platform, well, you can't go make 10,000 bot accounts because that's going to cost you way too much money.
Right.
Also, if you're trolling and being a shithead, then you're going to get banned, and then your money's gone.
So what do you think Facebook or Mark?
I don't think they're ever going to do that. Right. But I think the new platforms will. I actually think the future of the internet is paywalls on everything.
Well,
More
there has
paywalls.
to be. There has to be, but
you have to have, if you want to go to lab, you need some type of skin in the game, or else people are not going to take things seriously.
So if Facebook right now with whatever 1.5 billion.
Yeah,
users.
I don't know. Total on other platforms, it's 2 billion something users.
All right. So you think if they did a paywall or some kind of subscription
It's not
service?
going to happen there. They make too much money from ads.
Right.
They would have to charge too much.
Well, what happens is that they will probably have people that pay will not see the ads, maybe, and people that don't pay will see
What
ads.
I think Facebook should do is, since groups are big on there, is allow paywalls for groups, and then they take a cut.
Yeah.
So if you have a group, you basically charge whatever you want, $20 a month to join it, and then Facebook, and built into Facebook, and Facebook takes 10% or whatever.
So getting back a little bit to the FTC lawsuit, which is more of an anti-competitive lawsuit, saying, okay, you guys have acquired these other companies that have become so big now, thanks to Facebook, that now you have too much power. But do you think there's a little motivation behind, which is not just the anti-competitive, but also the too much controlling the message in multiple platforms, and then
Yeah, I mean, listen, I can't take any politician seriously when they talk about control and power, because that's their fucking drug, right? Like, all politicians care about is power and control, and so they don't like that a private company has that in many ways more than they do. So they want to take that back. It's just a power game.
Well,
that's all it is.
from that point of view, that actually, in a way, penalizing success. I mean, you take a company that is, you buy for $1 billion, which Instagram was in its infancy, was a more of a photo filtering app, social media app, and then obviously WhatsApp was a messenger services that was barely known in the US and very heavily used, at least in Europe, that I know of. So they acquired these platforms that are very little at that point, and as you said, 8 to 10 years later, especially in the case of Instagram, they become these mega platforms with all kinds of features and additions, and some more or less successful.
Yeah, can I tell you? I don't think it matters. Split them up, don't split them up. I don't think it changes anything.
Right,
frankly.
but that's the thing, that in a way is they're saying, okay, well, we buy this platform or service or business or whatever that was basically not going too far or not growing fast enough. We acquire under our wing, we make it big, and now you're penalizing us, saying, oh, now you need to get rid of that.
In the beginning, Instagram needed Facebook mainly just for monetization. That's the big thing that Facebook's brought to Instagram, is the monetization. But Instagram's big enough. They have their own monetization. If they split Instagram and Facebook, I don't really think it matters. I don't think it's going to change anything. I just think that the only big difference is that now you're going to split the ad revenue that goes to both. But they're both, Instagram is plenty big enough at this point to have its own ad buying portal. So honestly, I don't think it matters. Really.
Well,
They're both so big that instead of having one monolith, you're going to have two monoliths. That's it.
Right, but if it's not under Facebook control, unless they communicate with each other.
Well, first of all, you don't just split companies like that. Facebook's still going to have a ton of shares in Instagram because they own it. Unless they do a forced sale, I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't think it matters. Honestly, I don't think it matters. I don't think it,
So do you see...
the solution is new platforms. It's not splitting up the current ones.
So do you think these lawsuits will be successful, or is just a bunch of noise again?
I don't know. I think most of politics is noise. Is it going to be successful? It would take a strong will from a political leader to make it happen. So does Joe Biden have that strong will to push this? I don't think so. I don't think he cares that much about this particular topic. And then does Congress? I don't think so. I think Congress is so split right now that no.
Yeah.
I don't think so. And the FTC, I mean, again,
I'm more concerned. I mean, to be honest, I don't care.
To speculate on what politicians are going to do is not a good game to play.
Yeah, I don't worry about the FTC, or I don't worry about Facebook controlling WhatsApp, Instagram, or whatever, or Google also having YouTube and a bunch of other companies. And I worry about more of the establishing a policy in either you censor or you don't. Because if we're going to start controlling what all this media is saying, whether you like it or not, and this government is on or not off, they need to understand. They need to. Some of these companies have become, like in Twitter specifically, has become too big to control. And I think even Jack Dorsey has kind of admitted, like, I don't have the power to control everything that happens on the platform. Neither does Mark Zuckerberg. They've gone like. They evolve so much, they are out of control, and they start trying to reel things in when it's kind of late. And that's why I think that it may be more and more difficult to control what happens on the platform. And as much as you want to put things in place, they're always kind of catching up. It's supposed to be in ahead.
I think it's too late.
It is
really
exactly.
It's too late.
But there's been I mean, not just in the U.S., but there's been a lot of things that have been around the world that have been either caused or prevented by Twitter. When there's situations where there's demonstrations, revolts, these presidential elections, things like that, that when elections, for example, campaigns were paused, then people were still tweeting and doing campaigns on or pseudo messaging on Twitter just to cause one thing or the other, or move things one way or the other. I mean, it's just something that is hard to control in some countries or in some places, including the U.S. obviously. So I don't know. I mean, it's a very difficult topic because it's very hard to when the CEO of the company tells you, well, we have mechanisms in place on this, and we're developing this. And I also think that eventually Twitter will become, like, I think you said that a while ago, like two different versions. One is like the Wild West version, I think you called it, like
Wild West Twitter, and then
like
censorship
everything goes, and the other one is like the vanilla PG-14 section or something.
I don't know. I think it's too late for Twitter. I don't think there's any going back. I think we'll just have Twitter replacements, new platforms that are just better, and that, you know what? Hey, Jack Dorsey, you became a billionaire. You know, you did it.
But it's not much. Yeah, it's not much those CEOs becoming. I mean, the stock price.
Sometimes it's like, listen, no company lasts forever. You guys had a good run. They're not going anywhere anytime soon, but I think we'll see a slow decay over time.
Well, I'm listening,
and that goes for Twitter and Instagram and all of them.
I know, or you hear too, more and more people on the, famous people label, like whatever, sports people, celebrities, whatever, that are starting to feel that kind of social media burnout. Like they're starting to say, you know what, I don't go to Twitter that much.
But it's not just celebrities.
Yeah, people.
Celebrities get it amplified because they have millions of people commenting on them constantly.
They're the ones hard.
But even normal people.
Right. Like non-celebrities. I personally, I'm actually doing less social media these days than I was doing like a month ago or 2 months ago. Like I never did much Twitter. I don't do any Facebook. I used to do some Instagram. Now I do Instagram maybe twice a week. Like go to Instagram and I go post something and leave. But it's just because I realize that you spend so much time looking at this picture and everybody's just like a highlight reel, and it's just like I'm over it, like I just have better things to do, basically.
One of the reasons why I think a fragmented social media landscape will be better is because things break at scale. And when you have 1 billion users, I mean, how are you supposed to control that? I mean, how is any company or government or anybody supposed to control 1 billion users? That's crazy. That's impossible, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I think that we're just gonna have fragmented, like a you know what a fractal is? Mm-hmm. When you zoom in and it keeps like it's the same, more and more shapes. I think we're gonna have fractal social media where you're gonna have tons of platforms with maybe a few million users, and all these people are pretty aligned. And then, if you have 3 million dedicated paying users who pay $15 a month, you have a good viable business, and you have an ability to control them to where it's not so out of range, basically impossible to control all of them. You can have moderators, you can have things, and you can say, hey, this social media is only for kind of discussing these things. If you want to discuss other things, go somewhere else, and be very unapologetic with banning people who choose to troll or who choose to constantly talk about things that are not based. I mean, really the best, there's actually, if you study kind of like certain Discord groups and Slack groups and even some Reddit groups, the ones that work the best are the ones where people ban mercilessly, where they basically say this is the topic, or Facebook groups, whatever. And if you are constantly straying off topic or trolling or whatever, we ban you instantly. We don't care. They are actually able to keep things under control pretty well there and have good, solid, non-cynical conversation. But when you have 1 billion users, it's just impossible. It's just, and no skin in the game.
Yeah, not just that.
With 1 million anonymous accounts, you have millions of bots, you have no skin in the game, no repercussions for what you say. It's a problem.
And you have 1 billion users using a platform with an algorithm that is actually instigating and engaging and working towards keeping you engaged no matter what. So they're going to be showing you conversations.
Oh, if I were to make a social media platform,
they're going to show you arguments. They're going to show you opinions, things that are going to make you stay there from the people that you love or hate or whatever. So that's the thing. The algorithm is like a drug that is going to keep you there, and that's how they benefit, because screen time is key.
If I were to make a social media platform today, and feel free to use this, give me some equity if it works out. Just throw me a couple points. I would make it groups based. I probably would not make it only text based. There's a whole new push for like spatial reality, which is a whole other topic. But anyways, I would make it groups based. I would have it heavily moderated so that you get banned if you're not talking about certain topics or you're trying to be cynical all the time or diverge the conversation. I would make it paywalled. I would do a lot of things that basically no social media does now. I would put daily limits. You cannot use this more than 30 minutes a day. If you're on more than 30 minutes a day, then basically it literally, the app just tells you, hey, you've been on too long.
Oh, you need to pay for time.
Yeah, but even that depends, because if people have money, they don't care. But I would just make it so that you can only be on it 30 minutes a day. Yeah, could people have multiple accounts?
How about putting a limit on how much things you can post, how much you can argue and post and rebuttal and stuff?
You could do
There's
that.
some people go back and forth, and it's like,
you could. I would do. I would ban filters. If you're gonna post pictures, you can't post filters.
but that's, the filters, most of the phones already have filters.
So you have to, what I would do to get around this is any photo or video you want to post, you have to take it within the app. So you can't upload with some other filter built into it. And then within my app, there are no beauty filters, anything like that. I would do a lot of those things. Bring more authenticity back to it. That's what I would do. I would make it very groups based. And when I say groups, we could have groups as small as like 15, 20 people. It could be just friend groups. It could be larger kind of topic based groups, lots of different things. That's what I would do. And that's what I think the future of social media is.
How does the business work?
You pay.
You pay. Okay, so it's a paid app.
Yeah, there's no ads.
Okay, I see. All right. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to solve. It's a lot of noise lately. Because the FTC made this, basically filed this lawsuit, and that's the Federal Trade Commission, which basically is a government agency, and they regulate a lot of things. It has more noise than just, the typical conversation about Facebook monopoly or YouTube or Google and all that. So we'll see how this goes. But I think the timing is kind of a little iffy. They do it now at the end of the Trump administration, when Trump was complaining about all this fake news on Facebook and all that. Biden is now going to become president in the next month or so.
I'm not really aware. What is Biden's stance on
I don't think
social media regulation? I don't think
he has expressed anything specifically, at least that I know of. So I'm sure he has said things about it, but I don't know exactly what he's. I don't think he has anything to do, or he has said anything.
That's
about
why
this
I
particular
think
lawsuit.
it's too hard. Because if you're gonna do a major move like breaking up Facebook, you need a lot of political will to do that.
Well,
and I don't think Biden really cares that much.
That just before the elections, all major social media platforms or companies went to testify before Congress, and the famous clip when Ted Cruz, actually a Republican from Texas, was grilling.
But that's what these guys do. That's what politicians do.
I know.
They
But
make a show, they get their little clip, it goes viral, and they say, "I won."
No, it
That's
wasn't a
their
clip.
job.
That was a whole session where he was basically questioning their platform and their policies and their decisions to do this or that, or not do this or not do that. So that was pretty critical. It went viral, whatever, because of the way the clip went. But as far as Biden, I don't know. He's gonna have so much shit on his agenda that I don't even know if this is gonna be one priority for him or not. But all right, so let's move on to the next major topic. We had two IPOs this week. One, obviously, DoorDash, which was yesterday, December 9th. We're recording this on the 10th. And the second one was the infamous Airbnb that was supposed to go public. I think it was last year, the first time, or earlier this year, I forgot. I think, Airbnb I was looking forward to a while ago. It's a company that I've been following for a while. I kind of like Brian Chesky as far as his views on policies, on politics, on his demeanor. I mean, the way as a business person, even though they've been killed obviously with the COVID, like every other business. But let's start with DoorDash. I mean, I'm not so familiar with DoorDash. I think you know a little more about them, but the IPO was pretty successful that first day, as expected. But what do you think? I mean, they started at the price was 102, and I think they closed. I'm looking at 189, so they went up quite a bit. Today it's a little down. Obviously, start selling to 170 or something. But what do you think of DoorDash as one of the newest public companies?
I mean, listen, they're in a very competitive business.
I know.
And I think the end game is not food. You know, Tony, I actually remember, I forget which podcast this was. I listened to an interview with Tony Zhu. Must have been like 3 or 4 years ago now, back when DoorDash was much smaller than it was today. And he basically said, very frankly, what the long-term roadmap was. And I think it still is. It's just, I think, probably taking longer than most people would have thought. And he said, we're not a food delivery company. He said, we are a fulfillment infrastructure company. And he said, this is like 3 or 4 years ago when he said this. And he said, our goal is to be basically the next UPS. He says, we want to...
Really? UPS?
Yeah. That basically the modern version of UPS. Now, UPS is still going to do like longer range, but he says we want to do for local delivery what UPS and FedEx did for basically standard shipping. And he said we want to be, and we think we can be that size company. And he said, I actually think our market is even bigger than UPS and FedEx because local delivery is so massive.
But DoorDash is obviously known for their niche in restaurant delivery.
Well, food was the low-hanging fruit. And now, obviously, lots of companies have gotten into that. But the bigger, and you're already seeing it, DoorDash and Postmates and different companies are partnering with retailers now, too. I think
I think they did it out of necessity because they need to keep the drivers on their
the end game for DoorDash and all of these delivery companies is pretty much the same thing. I think that if we accelerate 10, 15 years down the road, it's going to be very similar to UPS and FedEx, where there's going to be 2, maybe 3 major players left, in the same way that you have UPS, FedEx, USPS, and maybe DHL, but pretty much that's it. There's not a whole lot of major players. That's it. Mm-hmm. And I think that we'll probably I think DoorDash will be one of them. I think Uber will be one, maybe Postmates. I don't know. And that'll be it. And that's going to be it. And they're going to be the last mile, so to speak, or intercity, intertown fulfillment infrastructure for certainly the United States, and then eventually maybe globally. We'll see. But that's the end goal. Deliver everything, not just food.
So as far as the IPO, do you like the company? Do you like the stock? Do you like where you feel like it has a lot of growth?
A lot of growth, certainly. A lot of top line revenue growth, certainly, 100%. They definitely are going to keep growing. Profitability is a different question. I think they're still many years away from profitability. I think it's a tough business. I don't have anything really to add that no one else, that people don't already know. The unit economics of food are very tough, and that if they want to make money, that the future is going to be broad partnerships, and that they're in the volume game. They're going to have to do $100 billion in revenue, and then they'll make a few billion in profit. That's the long-term game. And I think that they can get to $100 billion in revenue, say 10, 15 years down the road, because the market is massive. But it's going to take a while to get there. And I think that it's really just who's going to survive and make it to the end. Because I think it will end up being that we have like 2 or 3 players that do all the local delivery, and that's it. And I actually think the long term, now maybe this will be a FTC block, but the long term, if DoorDash, say, wins and becomes one of the major local delivery, that then they'll merge with like a UPS or something like that. I think maybe the FTC will block that.
Right. I don't think. Well, before we get to the second one, which are Airbnb, I wanted to ask you, do you see about Uber selling their driverless technology or self-driving technology to another company, to Aurora?
No, I don't think they had much.
But why would they do that? I mean, I was surprised when I saw that.
I don't think they have much in the first place. Uber is so far behind that I think
but
it's.
as you remember back in what was his name? Travis
Kalanick.
Kalanick?
Kalanick, yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure I get the last name proper because, but anyways, back in the days, the goal of Uber was eventually making money once they don't need drivers.
Yeah, but that's such a long-term thing.
Well, I know,
that's not even. That's still not even close.
We're not even close technology-wise, as we discussed many times. But why would they sell that? That's almost like the future of the company.
Yeah, but I think I think Uber realized we're so far behind when it comes to developing full self-driving, like level whatever they call it, 4 or 5,
Level
whatever.
5, yeah.
They're so far behind, and it's just not going to happen. They're just going to wait for somebody else to do it, and then they're going to license the technology. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was one of their assets. I mean, the main thing is that Uber said clearly, we're not going to be very profitable until we basically eliminate
pit. And they were spending so much money.
They were losing $1 billion a quarter.
I know.
Well, how much longer are they going to be like that? And their whole goal was that being profitable once there's self-driving.
No, they should be profitable before that.
Well, if they increase the prices.
Yeah,
but if they increase the prices, they become less competitive, and then it's like, okay, well, I can just take a cab.
How many competitors do they have now?
Well, everybody's. I mean, they have competitors in the driving share.
Not really. Lyft in the U.S. There's Lyft, and who else?
but also the taxi companies and all that stuff are starting to become like Uberized, if you will. And they have your app, you can call the cab. You can basically do similar stuff, you know. So, and in many places, I mean, Uber has a lot of problems with the different cities that don't allow them or whatever. In other European countries, they have like Cabifys and blah, blah. They have all kinds of different services.
I'm not talking about international. International is a different game. But in the U.S., there's no competition. It's Lyft. That's it. And I don't think Lyft is ever going to beat Uber.
Yeah, but how long do you think it's going to survive if they are losing money?
Well, I think their goal is to not lose money. And one way they're going to do that, stop wasting money trying to develop self-driving cars when they know they're so far behind.
Okay, so you think that's a good move, basically? I mean, you don't think that the future of Uber or Lyft, for that matter, is to be able to call a driver,
5 years,
pick you
maybe
up?
beyond 5 years, but they don't have time to think about 5-10 years from now. They need to think about the next few years. They need to get to break even. They need to not lose
For
money.
a thing like Uber Eats, that would be actually ideal. You have a basic self-driving car just going around and dropping the food.
But it's
I think that would be.
we're not close, man. I'm telling you, we're another 5 years away.
Is it the technology or is legislation?
Both.
Yeah, I think legislation is going to be very, very difficult, and that's a whole huge topic too. I think technology. is closer than we think.
Even 5 years from now, when we have self-driving for real, I think that like in a state like California, for example, you don't think unions and all of these are gonna and labor groups are gonna protest hard against self-driving cars?
Well, remember what they did, try to make the Uber drivers as contractors,
right? And then Uber's and what do you think is gonna happen when Uber says, you know what, we don't need drivers anymore?
Right.
It's not gonna be good.
Right. All right. So quickly, Airbnb. So it's supposed to go IPO today. Start trading today. It says that Airbnb is looking at shares starting at 68.
Yeah, people are saying it's gonna finish. I don't know what it's gonna finish above, but they said
it's
it could
looking for
finish
above
$200 a share.
Yeah, it's gonna look for a $47 billion valuation. So
no, it'll be worth 100 for sure, minimum.
Well, yeah, that's what it's looking at, 68. But obviously, we know it's not gonna be 68. I mean, it's not trading publicly as of now. It's probably trading for institutionalized investors. But the thing is, Airbnb is an example of a company that kind of figured out the hospitality business. I mean, they made a bunch of acquisitions before the COVID happened. They started to have a couple of quarters here and there where they were actually profitable and making money. Overall, they are losing hundreds of millions of dollars so far, as far as annual revenue, but profit and losses. But they did have a couple of quarters where they were making money just before COVID.
Airbnb is fine. They have solid unit economics.
I think it's fine too.
They're going to be cash.
I agree.
They have plenty of cash flow. They're fine.
Well, they had a round of $2 billion, a new $2 billion investment based on I think it was based on a valuation of it was less. Airbnb made 219 million in net income in revenues of 134 billion. Okay. Yeah, I remember that they received a loan. Yeah, they raised $2 billion in debt funding at a valuation of 18 billion. That was actually back in April this year when COVID started. So, but I think that's a very appealing IPO to me. I mean, I was looking at that one before when it was supposed to happen almost a year ago. And so, yeah, I think the rumor of the war on the street is that it's going to go up all the way to probably close to maybe 200. That's huge. How much?
Yeah, I think Airbnb is a solid company, run really well. Like you said, I think Brian Chesky's brilliant. Now, are they worth $150 billion? I don't know. Valuations are pretty nuts these days. What's worth what is hard to tell. I don't know. There's two different questions. Is it a solid, great company? Yes. Would I buy at $150 billion valuation? I don't know. Because if you're buying at that valuation, your question is, all right, is there a chance I could double my money on this? Are they going to be worth $300 billion? That's a bit of a stretch. Now, again, in these markets, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I mean, I definitely wouldn't try to even get into it for a while. Because, I mean, now it's going to go...
When they were supposed to go public at $30 billion, it was very attractive.
Right.
I was going to be first in line to buy.
Right.
Now that they've delayed the IPO so much and they're worth so much more... I don't know.
Yeah, but they figured out a way to even survive or do better in the second half, if you will, of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah,
crisis.
Airbnb is a anti-fragile company because the benefit of Airbnb is yes, they got hurt with revenue losses, but they don't have all the costs that all the hotel chains do.
Right.
They don't own a ton of assets that need to be maintained.
And they are so flexible that a lot of people that were living in major cities saying, okay, we're going to be confined, or we're going to the rural areas actually were having a big increase in Airbnb bookings and reservations. People that were just trying to be away, like almost like self-isolation thing. The families were just going away saying, okay, we're not going to school, we're not doing anything. We're going to rent an Airbnb and just be in the middle of nowhere. So because of that flexibility, they were able to adapt better to the COVID pandemic's era than say a hotel that has a building and then, okay, well, we're going to be closed for 6 months and who knows we're going to open and under which conditions or whatever. So they had a much more, they're more fragile or more agile, if you will, too, that they can move in different directions as they will. So I think that's good. And not to mention that just before they made acquisitions of online travel agencies, booking agents, and all that stuff.
Airbnb is a cash flow machine. The only reason they look to lose money on paper as far as their net income line item goes is just because they're spending so much on growth and expansion.
Right.
But as they grow more, they will become even more profitable.
They will have more competition from the major hotel chains like the Marriotts that have their own Airbnb type scheme. But they also, at the same time, Airbnb is actually advertising. Well, first of all, they allow boutique hotels that don't belong to major hotel chains to advertise on Airbnb.
I think they should do more of that.
And they also allow individual hotel rooms to be listed as Airbnb. So basically, there's going to be a lot of synergy between the traditional hospitality industry and what Airbnb is offering right now. So they're trying to expand in their area. So yeah, I mean, we'll know more tomorrow as far as how the price escalates or
by
climbs.
the time people see this,
exactly. I mean, we're
recording this on Thursday, the day of the IPO.
Yeah. All right, buddy. So that's most of the news for now. Any other topics or anything?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah. Last week we spent all the time doing mostly e-commerce and post Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Well, in the middle of the shopping season, doesn't feel like much now, but we're basically 3 weeks away from Christmas, so we'll see how things happen. So, all right. So basketball season starts this weekend. Preseason.
Yes.
Preseason is this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Saturday for my Phoenix Suns.
Your Phoenix Suns.
Yes.
Okay.
And then
You're part owner?
22nd of December will be the start of the season.
Okay. All right. Good. So no bubble. Just to clarify, no spectators either. For now. Closed environment, different cities. Teams travel, all that stuff normal, just no people.
Yep.
Okay. And
James Harden's still in the strip clubs. Doesn't care.
Oh, see?
Oh, you didn't hear about that?
No,
Oh, he was in Vegas partying.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that Vegas was open for
You didn't
business.
hear any of the Harden stuff?
No.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't-
all the players were supposed to show up for training camp. 'Cause the season starts preseason starts this week. James Harden hasn't showed up, and then he
Well,
was
he
in.
wants to be out of Houston.
Yeah,
I know that much.
Yeah, but that's a breach of contract.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you want to be out. You signed a contract.
Yeah. Well,
And he was partying in Vegas, and that's against all the COVID protocols.
yeah.
So I don't know. Listen, I think even if you want to switch teams, you know what? When you're getting paid $40 million a year to play basketball, it'd be nice if you show up.
Don't pay him. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, they're not going to if he doesn't show up.
Oh, he hasn't showed up yet.
He hasn't showed up.
Oh, how do you know he was in Vegas? They
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's like open.
Oh,
He was in Atlanta with for some rapper's birthday. I forget which rapper, and he was like on Instagram and videos and stuff. And then like a couple days later, when Houston Rockets training camp started and everybody was supposed to have shown up, there were videos of him in Vegas partying.
those people are so out of touch. Seriously, they're like,
I've been a Harden guy for a long time. I think he's underrated, but he's losing me.
well, I lost him a
losing
while
me
ago.
if
I
he's
never
gonna be
actually.
doing
I was
that.
never a Harden guy as much as you liked him, and we'll see how Chris Paul does in
Now,
Phoenix.
Chris Paul, most underrated player ever. He's going to prove it this year with the Suns. We're going to have a great season. Devin Booker is going to be MVP candidate. Will he win it? I don't know. That's a stretch.
I doubt
But
it.
will he be in the running? 100%.
Yeah. Yo,
The
you said
Suns-
that you I
Suns
think you
will
said
make it to the second round of the
You
playoffs.
said here that the Suns were gonna make the playoffs to the second round.
Second round.
Okay, I just want to have it on different podcasts. So
You want to bet?
no, I want to bet. I don't
I'll
bet on
put
things
money
that I
on
don't
it.
control.
I'll put
but
money on it.
second round is gonna be tough. That means that we need to beat whichever team is in the first round, which is gonna be if the Suns are number 6, 7, 8. It's probably gonna be Lakers, maybe Clippers. I don't know who the third team will be.
Nuggets?
Nuggets, maybe.
I'm not afraid of the Nuggets.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there. So, yeah, this weekend is also the last race of the season for Formula One. They're going to Abu Dhabi. And we'll see if the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton makes it. He was out with COVID last time. The race was very interesting.
He doesn't care. He already won.
No,
My favorite.
you know what? They have very strict COVID in that country. They actually have 4 tests, and they make them into a biosphere, they call it, which is like everybody had to go into a place, and basically like a bubble, like the Orlando bubble type thing, where everybody's there, and they have to have 4 negative tests successive every day before they even allowed. And if you don't pass that, you're basically out of the country.
My favorite thing about the race was that Lewis Hamilton, supposed to be a great driver, and then the guy who replaced him, who's like a rookie nobody.
No, he's not a rookie. Okay, he was new in the team, but he's been racing for a while.
But he's not considered.
George Russell, yeah.
He's a guy who's like a middle of the pack guy. He's not.
Well, he's racing for a small team. He's racing for.
But he goes in.
Yeah, I know.
And immediately,
he surprised everybody.
Basically, the only reason he didn't win the race was
fucked
because
him up.
his team fucked up in the pits. But the guy literally was going to win the race.
Yeah, he had the
He
race
had never
won.
driven the car before, and I think
had.
that tells you just a little bit how much F1 these days is the car versus the driver.
Well, it
because
tells
a
you-
guy who had never driven the car hops
he's-
in and wins
okay,
a race.
Okay, let's clarify that because you're jumping into. He's driven the car before in test sessions and stuff. He's never raced that car.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand. It was a big surprise for everybody. I mean, George Russell, who's racing for Williams, so he's not a new rookie or anything, but he's been racing. Jumped into, he's a Mercedes driver, so he was loaned to replace Hamilton. And
Who do you have? Who's better in your opinion, Schumacher or Hamilton? Because they're both similar in that they had great cars.
Man, I mean, I don't know. I had to think about that very, very thoroughly. I mean, some of the only thing that I can say is that the records that Hamilton has surpassed or beat Schumacher on, as far as number of poles, wins, and things like that, is being helped by the fact that the Formula One season now is 20, 21 races per year. Back in Schumacher time, it was, 15, 16 max, so that's one thing. Schumacher also dominated when he was for 5 years with Ferrari. So those are the years that basically was like Hamilton now winning everything.
Right. They're very
Being
comparable.
the assigned number one driver.
They had the best car.
They had the best car. They have different tire companies. And in their case, Bridgestone was basically doing the tires just for Ferrari. And then everybody else had to adapt to whatever Ferrari wanted. I mean, it was a different era completely. So, no, was Schumacher A talented driver, absolutely. I mean, when he started, it was the same. He was young and he started being a rival with Ayrton Senna, who was the biggest driver back then. This is back 94, 95. So, I mean, yeah, Schumacher, it was the fucking best of the world. First time, 7-time world champion. Now, Hamilton now has won 7. He's won, like Schumacher was never beaten by a teammate, basically.
So that's a good one.
So, and Hamilton, was beaten by Rosberg.
When he had the preferential treatment.
Kind of, yeah. So, anyways, it's a longer discussion. You're gonna find people.
Who's your F1 GOAT?
Now, with that said, I'm not actually a big fan of Schumacher either. So,
who's your F1 GOAT?
GOAT?
Yeah, who's the greatest? Who's the Michael Jordan of F1?
I mean, I've been a huge fan of Ayrton Senna all my life.
I knew it was gonna be Senna.
So
how many did he win?
He won 3.
Okay,
but
he
unfortunately, he died. So, but as far as
I would recommend for everybody the Ayrton Senna documentary on Netflix. If you haven't seen it,
it's called Senna.
It came out a few years ago.
Yeah,
but we actually
2011.
We have the poster on the wall behind the camera.
Yeah.
But
2011. Yeah, Senna.
It's a great documentary. It's on Netflix now. So
yeah, I was a big Senna fan, and the guy, not just because of what he did at the track, but what he did off the track too. He was very charismatic, and he was driving also in an era where there were no driving aids, there was no gimmicks.
Yeah, very different.
It was just basically you on.
That was probably. Do you think that was like peak F1 back then? The 80s and 90s.
Close.
Because that was back.
80s, 90s.
You had like Hunt and Prost.
That was no Hunt was before.
And Lauda.
Hunt was before.
Right, I'm saying you had the 80s was like Hunt and Lauda, right?
Yeah.
And then you had Prost and Senna. I mean, I think that was, and then going into Schumacher.
Right. Yeah. That was a good time. I mean, I liked when it was V12. I mean, I'm working more on the engines. The V12 and the V10 engines, the sound of those motors you cannot replace. And now we started going into the V6s and all that stuff and the hybrids and stuff. But anyways, that's a whole different podcast. So right. We're wrapping up the podcast.
Next week, I want to hear your top 5 F1 drivers all time listed. That's your homework for next week.
Okay. All right. I'll think about it.
And I'll give you my top 5 NBA players, my opinion.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's one of those things. I hate to mix eras and all that stuff.
Of course.
Juan Manuel Fangio
like
and all
in
that
basketball,
stuff.
It's like, where do you rank Bill Russell? It's like he has 11 championships, but he also played in the 60s eventually against a bunch of white dudes who couldn't jump. So it's hard to compare.
Yeah, I know. It's just different eras. I mean, you tell me in today's field, is Hamilton the best? I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways, I don't want to go into that now.
That's your homework for next week. Okay. Top 5 current, top 5 all time, and I'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
For NBA.
All right, I'll give you my top 5 of all time. With I don't know a whole lot of history. I mean, I go back as far as.
Who was the guy in Ferrari way back in the day?
70s and which back.
The one who won a bunch of championships way back in like the 60s. For Ferrari.
Fangio won.
Fangio.
But I mean, he won 5 in a row, and that's basically what.
He's like the Bill Russell of F1.
Yeah, but you see how that guy was driving.
Oh, I mean, that's when the famous
leather helmet.
Enzo Ferrari said drivers are expendable, cars are not, or whatever he said.
Well, no, the way those guys were driving, when you see it, that was like fucking insane.
Yeah.
Insane how they
were. When somebody died every week.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. There's a documentary, speaking of, it's called The Quick and the Dead. I highly recommend if any F1 fan that haven't seen it. I think it's actually on Netflix or something. I see it all. I don't know. It's Netflix or somewhere, but I see it always. I've seen it so many times. But basically, that's the era where you knew that your teammate or anybody else could die anytime. I mean, we had an accident 2 weeks ago with Roman Grosjean, and that was insane how it happened too. As far as the car just bursting into flames, and the guy is so lucky he's born again, literally. But we haven't seen that for ages. I mean, that's the way that Niki Lauda was
someone
burnt.
Died in a race.
In a race?
There's been a practice death. But in a race?
Jules Bianchi, very talented driver from Ferrari Academy, actually. He was not racing for Ferrari, but he was killed.
In practice?
No, he was in a race and in Japan.
In F1?
In F1.
Oh, okay.
But he wasn't killed exactly during the race. I mean, he hit a crane that was rescuing another car. He went off and hit the crane with the top of the head, like went under. Then he was in a coma forever. Basically, non-recovery until basically they just let it go.
How long was that? When was that?
That was not too long ago. It was 4 years ago.
It was 4 years ago?
Yeah, 3-4 years ago. Yeah, that's the reason why they added the Halo. The Halo was basically for that.
That's right.
And the Halo actually saved Grosjean. Ironically, Grosjean said he was one of the drivers against the Halo, saying, "Hey, the purist of F1, blah blah blah." But then after this, he said, "Oh fuck, I wouldn't get in a car without Halo." Because I mean that thing totally ricocheted. He went through the air barrier and then just totally saved his life.
If you see that video if anybody hasn't seen it, just look it up on YouTube. It's from like 2 weeks ago. If you just see that, I mean the car is like split in half.
Yeah, it's totally
on
split
fire.
Yeah,
you think, oh, that guy's
and
definitely
he's wedged
dead.
between the barrier and the car and the Halo, and he had the longest 26 seconds of his life. That he actually had an interview with, I think it was TF1 in France, and also with Sky News, Sky Sports. And he relates those 26, 28 seconds. And he says, for me, it felt more like a long time. Like, I think he said almost like 2 minutes where I had like this thing where I thought I need to get out. Then I can't get out. Okay, I'm going to die. And then he says, no, I don't want to die. My kids and this and that. And then he starts trying to go out again. And then his foot is stuck. I mean, he relates the whole thing with such a vivid memory.
Yeah.
That...
Like time slows down.
Yeah, exactly. It's like incredible, and it was 26 seconds. And the thing is, like, any more time than that, he would have just burnt, because he has this, you have these fire suits and everything that are they protect you against the fire, but for a certain time before they start burning. Right. And he was on the edge of that, and also very lucky for him is that it happened in the first lap of the race, in the third corner. So the medical car was still behind. F1 starts the races with the medical car behind the whole first lap, and then he pulls into a pit. So the medical car was right behind. So when it happened...
But they do that for good reason.
Well, they do it for that.
In the first lap, there's always crashes.
Right. In the first class is when there's things, and the medical car is behind. But in this case, the driver and co-driver of the medical car went out, and they were able to kind of help him with extinguisher stuff and then pull him out. So that was a big help, because if he happens in the middle of the race somewhere else and the medical car has to drive all the way to find him and other stuff, just 5-10 seconds more, that would have been lethal for him. So anyways, too much of this for now. So much for a short podcast. Thanks, guys. I don't know, you got all the way to the end. I'm going to segment this thing in sections, and if you're an F1 fan, maybe you can just look at this clip. If you're an investor or whatever and you like Facebook, we'll definitely have a lot of things to comment about.
Racing podcast may be coming one day. Right?
Yes. I'm trying to. I'm recruiting.
So that you don't have to torture me with race talk anymore.
Yeah, especially because you don't know shit about it. But
it's the same with basketball.
Yeah, exactly. I think I know more about basketball than you about racing, but just because it's more mainstream. But anyways, guys, thank you very much for following us. And if you like this podcast or any section of it, please just share it with one friend, just one friend. Everybody shares with one friend, and then hopefully we get more viewers. We do this for free. We do it for fun. We do it just for entertainment purposes. No sponsors, no guests, nothing. And that's it for now. We'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.